Hi lovelies, welcome to Vintage Mike Tales and thank you for being here, for sharing your time with me. If you love emotional stories, deep connections, and unforgettable romance, you are in the right place. Let's dive into today's story. The boardroom fell silent when Bridget Johnson spoke. Gentlemen, let me be clear. Her voice cut through the tension like steel wrapped in velvet. Vago Enterprise didn't become Detroit's leading tech conglomerate by accepting second place. We don't do runner-up. We don't do almost. We do first or we don't do it at all. She stood at the head of the glass table, 35 years old and magnificent in her power. Deep brown skin glowing under the fluorescent lights. Natural curls pulled back in a sleek bun that meant business. Designer navy suit tailored to perfection. Her dark eyes swept across the faces of men who both feared and revered her. The Anderson merger happens on our terms, or it doesn't happen. Am I understood? A chorus of yes, Ms. Johnson followed her out. Her assistant, Marcus, hurried alongside her. Your 7 o'clock dinner reservation is confirmed. The gentleman arrives at 7:15. Bridget's heels clicked against marble. Cancel it. But Ms. Johnson, this is the third. I said cancel it. She stopped, softened slightly. Actually, no, I'll go. I promised my father I'd try. Second place is first loser, Bridget. Always aim for the top. Her father's voice, 15 years in the grave, still commanded her every move. The restaurant was all low lighting and expensive wine. Bridget arrived exactly on time. Punctuality was respect. Her father taught her that too. The man, David something, a corporate lawyer her friend had set her up with, stood when she approached. Bridget, wow, you're even more beautiful than your photos. She smiled, practiced and perfect. Thank you, David. Dinner started pleasantly enough. He talked about his practice, his recent courtroom victory. She listened, asked appropriate questions, tried to relax the way normal women did on dates. So he leaned forward. Tell me about Vago Enterprise. Finally, familiar ground. We're expanding into artificial intelligence integration. Must be exhausting, he interrupted, running such a demanding company. It's exhilarating, actually. We just secured. I just mean for a woman, that kind of pressure. He sipped his wine. Don't you ever want to just, I don't know, relax? Let someone else take the lead. Bridget's smile tightened. I built my company from nothing, David. Taking the lead is what I do. Right. It's just, in a relationship, there's something attractive about a woman who knows when to step back. My ex-wife, she was always competing with me. Exhausting. He laughed, oblivious. You seem like you might have the same problem. More CEO than woman, The words hit like a slap. Bridget set down her fork with controlled precision. Excuse me. I just mean, look, you're impressive, obviously. But guys want someone they can protect, nurture, not compete with in the boardroom and the bedroom. She stood, graceful even in fury. This dinner is over. Come on, don't be sensitive. Good night, David. Her penthouse overlooking the Detroit River was silent except for the city's distant hum. Bridget stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, still in her dress, mascara beginning to smudge. More CEO than woman. She'd heard variations before. Too ambitious, too intimidating, too much. Her reflection stared back, beautiful, successful, alone. I conquered everything, she whispered to the glass. Everything except this. The dam broke. 35 years of armor cracked. And Bridget Johnson, who never cried in boardrooms or negotiations, who'd built an empire with her bare hands, slid down the window and sobbed. Great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep and desperate. She didn't know how to be soft, didn't know how to let someone in without seeing it as weakness. Her father raised her to be strong, to never settle, to always win. But he never taught her how to love, how to be vulnerable, how to let someone see past the empire to the woman, underneath who was terrified she was, fundamentally unlovable. What's wrong with me? She cried to the empty room. An hour later, tears spent, she sat on her bedroom floor with her laptop. Through blurred vision she typed, how to learn romance. The results were pathetic, articles, quizzes, self-help blogs. Then she saw him. Charles Logan, relationship expert and author, helping hearts find their way home. His photo showed a man around her age, white with kind hazel eyes, dark hair slightly tousled, smile genuine and warm. His credentials were impressive. Best-selling author, renowned relationship coach, featured in major publications. Testimonial after testimonial of people he'd helped find love. She clicked on his website. Read his blog posts written with uncommon empathy and insight. Watched a video where he read poetry he'd written, his voice deep, soothing, real. At 2 a.m., Bridget Johnson, who commanded rooms and crushed competitors, wrote the most vulnerable email of her life. Mr. Logan, I'm successful by every measure, except the one that matters. I don't know how to let someone in. I've forgotten how to feel anything except ambition and fear. I need help, not advice, not a book, real help. I don't know if you can teach someone like me, but I'm asking you to try. Bridget Johnson. She hit send before she could overthink it. Across the city, Charles Logan sat in his loft surrounded by books and handwritten poems he'd never show anyone. At 35, he'd helped hundreds find their soulmates. He'd written bestsellers on connection, vulnerability, love. He understood romance intellectually, professionally, completely, but his own bed was empty, his own heart lonely. He'd been writing another poem about longing, about searching. When the email notification chimed, he read Bridget's message once, twice, 3 times. The raw honesty pierced him. He Googled her name, found articles about Detroit's youngest female tech CEO, photos of her commanding stages, accepting awards, beautiful and fierce and utterly alone in every picture. Someone like me. She thought she was uniquely broken. He knew that feeling intimately. Charles began typing, Bridget, come see me tomorrow. 10 a.m. I don't know if I can teach you what you're asking, but I know this. You're not broken. You're not unlovable. You're just unpracticed. Let's teach your heart what your mind already knows, that you're worthy of everything you've built and everything you haven't yet found. Charles. He included his office address and hit send. Then he sat back, staring at the screen. Something stirring in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Tomorrow, he'd meet Bridget Johnson. Tomorrow, he'd try to teach her about vulnerability and connection. What Charles didn't know, what neither of them could know, was that in trying to teach her heart to open, his would finally break free too. Bridget arrived at Charles Logan's office at 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes early because lateness was failure. The building was modest, a converted brownstone in midtown Detroit, warm brick and tall windows. Nothing like her steel and glass tower downtown. She'd chosen her armor carefully, charcoal pencil skirt, silk blouse, heels that added 3 inches, hair perfect, makeup flawless. Every inch the CEO, but her hands trembled as she knocked. Come in, called a voice that matched the one from the video, deep, warm, real. Charles Logan stood as she entered, and something in Bridget's chest shifted. He was taller than she'd expected, maybe 6'1", wearing dark jeans and a navy. Henley, that suggested. He didn't need suits to command respect. His hazel eyes met hers with an intensity that saw straight through her. Armor, Bridget. He smiled, genuine and kind. Thank you for trusting me enough to come. I'm not sure I'd trust anyone, Mr. Logan. She kept her voice steady. But I'm here. Charles, please. He gestured to a leather couch, not a desk, she noticed. This wasn't a corporate meeting, and I read your email about 10 times last night. That took courage. It took desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. He sat across from her, leaning forward, present in a way that unnerved her. Tell me what you want, Bridget. Really want. I want to know how to, she faltered, hating the weakness. How to let someone in. How to feel something other than ambition and fear. I've built an empire, but I can't build a relationship that lasts past 3 dates. Why do you think that is? Because I'm too much. Too demanding, too. I didn't ask what men have told you, Charles interrupted gently. I asked what you think. The question landed differently. Bridget looked at her hands. I think I don't know how to be vulnerable. My father raised me to be strong, to never show weakness. Second place is first loser. That was his motto. I learned to win at everything, but nobody taught me how to lose control, how to just feel. Charles was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. I don't do traditional coaching for this, Bridget. You can't learn vulnerability from a textbook. You learn it by living it. Then what do you suggest? He stood, walked to the window, seemed to debate something, then turned back. We date, practically, intentionally, for 6 months. Bridget blinked. Excuse me. You need to experience real intimacy to understand it. So we'll date. I'll teach you how to open up, how to be present with someone, how to let your guard down. But it has to be real, Bridget. Real dates, real conversations, real connection. That's insane. This is a business transaction, which is exactly your problem. He moved closer, his eyes holding hers. You approach everything like a transaction. Love isn't a merger. Romance isn't a contract negotiation. If I'm going to help you, we have to do this for real. Her heart hammered. And when the 6 months end, something flickered in his expression. Sadness, maybe. Then you'll know how to love someone. Really love them. What if this gets messy? The question escaped before she could stop it. Charles smiled sadly. That's the risk we both take. Their first date was coffee by the Detroit. River, simple, unthreatening. Charles asked about her father, her empire, her fears. Bridget deflected each time, turning conversations back to business-safe topics. You're doing it again, he said finally, stopping on the riverwalk, hiding. I'm not hiding. I'm just terrified. His voice was kind, not accusing. Tell me one true thing, Bridget. Just one, something real. She looked at the water, at the city she'd conquered, and felt small. I'm afraid I'm unlovable. That something in me is fundamentally broken. Charles stepped closer. His hand found hers, warm, steady. You're not broken. You're not unlovable. You're just unpracticed at letting people see you. The touch sent electricity up her arm. Is this part of the lesson? Yes, he said quietly, and no. Week 3. They cooked together at his loft. Bridget tried to control everything. The temperature, the timing, the measurements. Charles caught her hands mid-chop. Stop, I'm just trying to... Control, I know. He turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her wrists. Let go, Bridget. Just for one night, let go. She wanted to argue. But something in his eyes, patient, understanding, made her breathe, nod. They burned the pasta. Laughed until her stomach hurt. Had a takeout on his floor surrounded by poetry books. Read me something, she said. Wine, warm and brave. Charles hesitated, then pulled out a notebook. His voice reading words he'd written, wrapped around her. She built an empire with walls so high, she forgot she was the treasure inside. Bridget's breath caught. Is that about me? Everything I write now is about you. He set the notebook down. That's probably not professional of me to admit. Charles, I know. I know this is supposed to be a lesson. But you should know the truth. His eyes met hers. I'm not sure when I stopped teaching and started falling. Week 6. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Bridget stopped wearing her armor around him. Started showing up in jeans. Let her hair down. Laughed freely. She told him about her father's death. About building Vago from nothing. About the loneliness that ate at her in the quiet moments. Charles shared his own story, helping everyone find love while remaining desperately alone. Writing about connection while craving it himself. Why relationship coaching? She asked one evening, curled on his couch. Because I understand loneliness, he said simply, and I wanted to fix it for everyone else, even if I couldn't fix it for myself. You're not lonely right now, no. He pulled her closer. I'm not. The tension between them was unbearable. Every touch lingered. Every look meant more. The line between teacher and man, between student and woman, had blurred beyond recognition. Bridget couldn't stop thinking about him. His smile, his words, the way he saw her, really saw her, and didn't flinch. One night at his loft, she confronted it. This feels too real, Charles. Are you still teaching me? He stood from where he'd been reading, crossed to her in 3 strides. No, God, no, Bridget. I stopped teaching the moment I started falling for you. This is real. Every touch, every word, it's all real. Charles, her voice broke on his name. Every night I lie awake thinking about you. Every morning I wake up aching for you. I tell myself we're taking it slow, being responsible, making sure you're ready. But God, Bridget, I'm dying here. Her hands fisted in his shirt. Then stop dying. I need to know you're sure. His forehead pressed against hers, their lips inches apart. I need to know this isn't moving too fast, that you're not going to wake up tomorrow and regret. She silenced him with a kiss that was pure fire. 8 weeks of restraint, of careful touches and stopping before things went too far, exploded between them. Charles groaned into her mouth, his hands sliding into her curls, angling her head to deepen the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Bridget looked into his eyes with absolute certainty. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want you, all of you, right now, Something fierce and primal flashed across his face. Bedroom. Now he took her hand, practically dragging her through the apartment. The bed was unmade, real and imperfect, and somehow that made everything more intimate. Charles turned to face her, suddenly gentle despite the hunger in his eyes. "We can take this slow. We've been taking it slow for 6 weeks." Bridget reached for the zipper at her back. "I'm done being slow." She let the dress fall, pooling at her feet, leaving her in black lace that she'd worn specifically for this. For him. Charles's breath left him in a rush. "Jesus, Bridget, your turn." Her voice came out huskier than intended, thick with want. He unbuttoned his shirt with shaking hands, shrugging it off. Bridget's eyes traveled over his chest. Lean muscle and pale skin she'd been fantasizing about for weeks. When he reached for his belt, she stopped him. "Let me." She stepped close, her dark hands against his abdomen as she slowly unbuckled his belt, unzipped his jeans. The intimacy of it, undressing him, being this close, made her dizzy. Charles's breathing turned ragged, his hands gripping her waist like an anchor. When they were both down to underwear, he backed her toward the bed, his eyes drinking her in. "You're so beautiful, so incredibly beautiful." Charles, his name was a plea, a prayer, a demand. He laid her back on the bed, covering her body with his, and the skin-to-skin contact made them both gasp. His mouth found hers again, kissing her deeply, while his hands explored, tracing her curves, learning her body, like he was memorizing scripture. When his lips left hers to trail down her neck, Bridget arched into him. "Please, tell me what you need." His mouth found the sensitive spot below her ear. Teeth grazing. I need you." Charles lifted his head, meeting her eyes with devastating intensity. "Look at me. Stay with me. I want to see you." He reached behind her, unclasping her bra, sliding it off with reverent slowness. When his hands cupped her breasts, his pale fingers stark against her rich brown skin, Bridget's eyes fluttered closed at the sensation. "Eyes on me," he commanded softly. She forced them open, meeting his gaze as his thumbs brushed over her nipples. The vulnerability of it, being seen like this, touched like this, completely exposed, was almost unbearable. "That's it," he encouraged, his voice thick. "Let me see you. All of you." His mouth replaced his hands, and Bridget cried out, her fingers threading through his dark hair, holding him to her. He worshipped her body with his lips, his tongue, his teeth, learning what made her gasp, what made her arch, what made his name fall from her lips like a benediction. When his hand slid into her panties, finding her wet and ready, Charles groaned against her skin. "God, you feel amazing." "More," she demanded, hips rolling against his hand. "Charles, please, more." He removed her panties with aching slowness, then his own underwear, and suddenly they were completely bare to each other. Bridget's eyes traveled down his body, taking in all of him, and her breath caught. "You're staring," he said, her smile playing at his lips despite the tension in his body. "You're beautiful." She pulled him back down to her, needing his weight, his warmth. "You're so beautiful, and I need you inside me right now, or I'm going to lose my mind." Charles positioned himself between her thighs, the head of him pressing against her entrance. But he paused, cupping her face with both hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I love you," he said, the words fierce and true. "I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you, and I need you to know this isn't just physical. This is me giving you everything." Tears spilled from Bridget's eyes. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me." He kissed her tears away, then slowly, carefully pushed inside her. The sensation was overwhelming. Fullness and connection and something that felt like coming home and losing herself simultaneously. Bridget's hands gripped his shoulders, nails digging in as her body adjusted to him. "Okay." Charles's voice was strained, his body trembling with the effort of staying still. "More than okay. Move, please move." He did, pulling out slowly before sliding back in, setting a rhythm that was tender and devastating. Their eyes stayed locked, breaths mingling, completely present with each other. "You feel incredible," Charles groaned, his hips rolling against hers. "So perfect. Like you were made for me." Bridget wrapped her legs around his waist, changing the angle, taking him deeper, harder. "I won't break." Something shifted in his expression, control fraying. His next thrust was harder, deeper, exactly what she needed. Bridget cried out, her head falling back against the pillow. "Eyes on me," Charles reminded her, one hand gripping her hip, the other threading through her curls. "Stay with me, beautiful." She met his gaze again, and the intimacy of it, being completely vulnerable, completely seen while he moved inside her, shattered something in her chest. This was what she'd been missing her whole life. Not just sex, but connection. Being fully present with another person. Charles's rhythm grew more urgent, his breathing ragged. His hands slid between their bodies, finding that sensitive bundle of nerves, and Bridget's back arched off the bed. "That's it," he encouraged, his fingers moving in circles while he thrust deeper. "Let go, I've got you." The pleasure built, coiling tighter and tighter in her core. "Charles, I'm going to—" "Come for me," he commanded, his voice rough. "Let me see you fall apart." She shattered, his name tearing from her throat as waves of pleasure crashed through her. Charles followed seconds later, groaning her name against her neck, his body shuddering as he found his own release. They stayed locked together, hearts racing, breathing hard, neither willing to break the connection. Charles lifted his head, brushing sweat-dampened curls from her face, and kissed her with aching tenderness. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I know it's fast, and I know you might not be ready to say it again, but I need you to know, this isn't me coaching you through intimacy. This is me completely in love with you." Bridget pulled him closer, her legs still wrapped around him. "I know. I can feel the difference. You taught me that." They made love twice more that night. Once fast and desperate against the wall, once slow and tender in the early morning hours. Each time Charles whispered poetry against her skin, words about beauty and belonging, and finding home in unexpected places. Afterward, they lay tangled together. Bridget's dark skin beautiful against his pale sheets, her curls spread across his pillow like a crown. "Stay," Charles said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her spine. "Don't go home. Stay here with me. I have a 7 a.m. meeting." "Skip it." She laughed, pressing a kiss to his chest. "I can't just skip board meetings because my boyfriend wants to keep me in bed." "Boyfriend," he tested the word, smiling. "I like that. Me too." She lifted her head, meeting his eyes. "Though sometimes it still feels surreal, like I'll wake up, and this will have been some elaborate coaching technique." His expression grew serious. "You know it's not, right? You know this is real." "I'm starting to." She settled back against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You're very patient with my neuroses." "They're not neuroses. They're learned behaviors from a lifetime of protecting yourself." He kissed the top of her head. "And I'll spend every day proving this is real until you believe it in your bones." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, neither one alone anymore. Neither realized that their happiness had been noticed, that someone was watching, that in 6 months, everything they'd built would be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. But tonight, in the sanctuary of his bedroom, they were simply two people who'd found each other against all odds. And for now, that was everything. And then came Beverly Hatfield. Bridget stood in the gilded ballroom of the Detroit Marriott, champagne flute in hand, her natural curls cascading, diamonds glinting at her throat. A gift from Charles for their 6-month anniversary. Her emerald gown hugged her curves, shimmering like stars. And for the first time at these events, she felt beautiful rather than armored. She was actually enjoying herself. Not because of networking opportunities, but because Charles would arrive soon. Because she would leave early with him. Because her empire no longer consumed every waking moment. "Bridget Johnson." The voice behind her was honey-sweet and venomous. "You look radiant." Bridget turned to find a stunning blonde woman in a red dress, her smile sharp as a knife. Blue eyes assessed her with barely concealed malice. "Thank you. Have we met?" "Beverly Hatfield." She extended a perfectly manicured hand. "I am a friend of Charles's. Well, I was more than a friend, actually." Ice water slid down her spine. Bridget's smile remained fixed, professional. "Oh, he hasn't mentioned me." Beverly's laugh was practiced, cruel. "That's Charles for you. Always so discreet about his conquests." She stepped closer, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "Can I give you some advice, woman to woman?" Every instinct screamed danger, but Bridget stood her ground. "I'm listening." "End it before he does. Before you become the headline." Beverly's eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction. "He's brilliant at making you feel special, isn't he? The poetry, the deep conversations, the way he sees into your soul." She leaned in. "I felt it too. Right up until he crushed me and moved on to his next project." "Charles wouldn't. He dumped me after 6 months. Said he wasn't ready for commitment." Beverly's voice dripped false sympathy. "But here he is, 6 months with you. Funny timing, don't you think? Oh wait, you were his client, weren't you? God, that's a new low even for him. Does his publisher know he's sleeping with the women he's supposed to be helping? Bridget's champagne glass trembled in her hand. You need to leave. I'm trying to help you. He's a relationship expert who breaks hearts professionally. You're just another case study, another chapter in his next book. Get out before he makes you the cautionary tale. Beverly squeezed Bridget's arm with false warmth. Trust me, sweetheart. I'm saving you from humiliation. 6 months is when he gets bored. When the novelty wears off and he needs new material. She glided away, leaving Bridget standing alone in the crowded ballroom, her world tilting. You're just another case study. 6 months is when he gets bored. Another chapter in his next book. The doubts she had buried came roaring back. How did she know what was real? What if Beverly was right? What if these 6 perfect months were just research? He had never mentioned Beverly. What else hadn't he told her? Bridget set down her champagne with shaking hands and left without saying goodbye to anyone. Charles arrived at his apartment to find Bridget waiting in the living room, still in her gown, mascara smudged, her expression a mask he hadn't seen in months. Bridget, I thought I was meeting you at the gala. Who's Beverly Hartfield? He froze, car key halfway to the table. Dread pulled in his stomach. Beverly, why, what happened? Just answer the question. Her voice could have cut glass. Who is she? She was my client. 2 years ago. Bridget, what did she say to you? She said you dumped her after 6 months. Said you crushed her. Said I'm next. Bridget's composure cracked, tears spilling over. She said I'm just another client, another project, another chapter for your next book. Material for the relationship expert who doesn't know how to actually love someone. That's not true. Charles stepped toward her, but she backed away like he had burned her. How do I know? How do I know, Charles? Her voice broke. I was broken when I came to you. Desperate, and you're brilliant at fixing people, at making them feel seen and loved and special. But what if that's all this is? What if I'm just your greatest success story? What if in 6 months you'll move on to someone new, and I'll be the cautionary tale? Bridget, listen to me. Did you break her heart? The question hung between them like a blade. Charles ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Beverly was never more than a client. She developed feelings I didn't return. I ended our professional relationship, ethically, appropriately. Whatever she told you is a lie. She took it badly, called me for months after. I had to block her number. But you ended it, yes, because I didn't love her. Because forcing something that isn't real is worse than being alone. He tried to reach for her again. Bridget, you're nothing like Beverly. What we have? What we have? She laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. We have 6 months. The exact time frame she mentioned. And every moment started from me paying you to teach me how to feel. How do I know I'm not just really good at learning? How do I know these 6 months weren't just you being really good at your job? Because I've never felt this before. His voice cracked, desperation bleeding through. Because I wake up thinking of you. Because your happiness matters more than my next breath. Because you've become the thing I didn't know I was searching for. Those are beautiful words, Charles. You're very good with beautiful words. It's literally your profession. The accusation gutted him. You don't mean that. I don't know what I mean anymore. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking small despite her height. I need time, space. I can't think when you're near me, and I need to think. Bridget, please. Don't. She held up a hand, diamonds catching the hallway light. Just don't. I need to figure out if what I feel is real or if you just taught me too well. She walked away, heels clicking against tile. And Charles let her go, his world crumbling with each step she took. 1 week of silence felt like dying slowly. Bridget threw herself into work, staying at the office until exhaustion claimed her. But even then she dreamed of Charles, his hands mapping her body, his voice whispering poetry against her skin, his eyes seeing straight through every defense. Was it real? Was any of it real? She had removed the sheets from her bed because they smelled like him, deleted his messages because reading them hurt too much. But she couldn't delete the memories, making love until dawn, laughing over burnt breakfast, him reading her poetry while she worked. Charles stopped writing entirely. His publisher called 3 times. He ignored them all. He went to her office twice, only to be turned away by her assistant with professional apologies and sympathetic eyes. On the seventh day, he learned from that same assistant that Bridget was leaving. For Paris, a business meeting, indefinite timeline. He made it to Detroit Metro Airport with 20 minutes to spare. Charles found her at security, laptop bag over her shoulder, looking exhausted and heartbroken and still the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Her curls were pulled back, her face bare of makeup, eyes red-rimmed. "Bridget." She turned, eyes widening. "Charles, what are you? Don't get on that plane." He pushed through the crowd toward her, ignoring annoyed travelers. "Please, just hear me out. I can't do this here." "Then where?" His voice rose, drawing stares. Phones lifted, recording. "You won't answer my calls. You won't see me. You're running to Paris to escape this, to escape us. So yes, we're doing this here." Security paused, watching. Bridget's face flushed with embarrassment. "Charles, please." "Bridget Johnson, I love you." The words echoed through the terminal. "Not as a coach, not as a teacher, but as a man who found his home in your eyes. You were never a client the moment my heart recognized yours." "You're making a scene," she whispered, tears streaming down her brown cheeks. "I don't care." He closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. "Hate me. Tell me I'm delusional and pathetic. But don't doubt what we have. Don't run because you're scared." "I'm terrified," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I've never needed anyone before you. I don't know how to do this. What if Beverly was right? What if Beverly is bitter and cruel and trying to destroy what we have because she never had it?" His thumbs wiped her tears. "I ended things with her because even then, 2 years ago, some part of me was waiting for someone who would make me want to break every rule I had." "This is crazy," Bridget sobbed. "We are crazy, probably." He smiled through his own tears. "But I'd rather be crazy with you than sane and alone. Can I come to Paris with you? Not as your former coach, as my partner, as the woman I want to spend my life learning to love better every single day." Bridget looked at him, really looked, at the raw honesty in his eyes, the vulnerability he wore like armor, the love that had been there from the beginning, waiting for her to be brave enough to accept it. She thought of her father's voice, "Second place is first loser." But Charles's voice drowned it out. "You're not second. You're singular. You're mine." "I love you," she whispered. "God help me. I love you so much it terrifies me." "But Charles, how do I know?" He kissed her then, deep and desperate and real, in front of hundreds of strangers who applauded and cheered. Bridget kissed him back, tasting salt from both their tears, finally believing, finally home. They went to Paris together. 3 days of wandering cobblestone streets, kissing in cafes, and pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. Bridget handled her business meeting in 2 hours instead of 2 days, then turned off her phone completely. On their 4th evening, Charles took her hand as the sun began to set. "I have somewhere I want to take you." "Where? You'll see." They took the metro to Trocadero, and as they emerged from the station, the Eiffel Tower rose before them, golden and impossibly beautiful in the fading light. "Charles." Bridget's breath caught. "Come on." He laced his fingers through hers, rode the elevator up, and emerged on the top platform as the city spread below them like a jeweled tapestry. The wind whipped Bridget's hair around her face. Charles stood behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. "You know what I love about Paris. What? It's the city of love. But it's also the city of art, of poetry, of things that last." He turned her to face him, and Bridget saw tears in his eyes. "I want to last with you, Bridget. Not just for 6 months or 6 years, forever." Her heart stuttered. "Charles," he dropped to one knee. The people around them gasped, stopped, turned with phones raised. But Bridget only saw him, this beautiful man kneeling before her on top of the world. "Bridget Johnson, you walked into my office 6 months ago, looking for strategies to fix what you thought was broken. But you weren't broken. You were just waiting. And so was I." His voice shook. "You taught me that being first doesn't matter when you've found your one. You're my one, Bridget. My always, my home." He pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. "Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me love you every day until we're old and grey, and our kids are rolling their eyes at how disgustingly in love we still are." Bridget laughed through her tears. "Kids? At least 2, maybe 3. We'll negotiate." His smile was tremulous, hopeful. What do you say? She pulled him to his feet, framing his face in her hands. Yes, God, yes. Charles slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her as the Eiffel Tower sparkled to life around them. As strangers applauded, as the city of love witnessed the beginning of their forever. I love you, Bridget whispered against his lips. I love you more. She smiled, radiant and free. 4 months later, on a crisp February morning, Bridget stood in the bridal suite of a small Detroit chapel, staring at her reflection. The dress was simple, ivory silk that flowed like water, no train, no veil. Just her, finally comfortable in her own skin. Her makeup artist dabbed at her eyes. You look beautiful, Miss Johnson. Bridget, she corrected gently. Just Bridget today. The chapel held only 50 people, close friends, family, key members of her team. Bridget had wanted intimate, real. No business connections, no networking opportunities, just love. As the music began, she walked down the aisle. Her eyes found only Charles. He stood at the altar in a simple black suit, and when he saw her, his composure shattered. Tears streamed down his face, openly, unashamed. God, I love this man, Bridget thought. I love that he cries, that he feels everything so deeply. Hi, Charles whispered, voice thick with emotion. Hi yourself. The officiant began, but Bridget barely heard. All she could focus on was Charles's hands holding hers, his thumb tracing their secret circles. Then came the vows. Charles pulled folded paper from his pocket, his voice shaking. I was a map-maker of hearts I'd never hold, a teacher of love I'd never known, until you walked in, guarded and bold, and turned my empty house into home. You taught me that strength isn't walls but doors. That vulnerability is the bravest thing. That love isn't something to keep scores, but the song two lonely people sing. So here's my vow, my promise, my truth. I'll love you in sickness, in health, in strife, from this day forward, from this moment of youth, until my last breath, you're my wife. Bridget didn't wipe her tears. She pulled her own paper from her bouquet. I built an empire with my own 2 hands, conquered every goal I ever set, but nothing in my carefully laid plans prepared me for the day we met. You saw the woman behind the walls, the scared girl hiding underneath. You caught me every time I'd fall, and taught this skeptic to believe. So here's my promise, raw and true. I'll trust you with my imperfect heart. I'll build our life, our dreams with you forever, Charles. You're my greatest art. Charles pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. I love you so much. I love you more. I now pronounce you husband and wife. But Charles was already kissing her, dipping her dramatically as their guests erupted in applause and laughter. That night in their hotel suite, Bridget moved to straddle his lap. Her hands framed his face. Charles's hands spanned her waist. I need you, not gentle, not careful. I need you to remind me I'm alive. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. Possession, desire, love all tangled together. Tell me you're mine. I'm yours, completely, utterly yours. He stood with her in his arms, her legs wrapped around his waist. Their mouths met in a kiss that burned deep, desperate, consuming. He carried her to the bed, laid her down like she was something precious and fragile and utterly his. You're so damn beautiful, he breathed, hovering over her. Every time I look at you, I can't believe you're real. That you're mine. Prove it, she challenged, her voice husky. Show me I'm yours. Charles's control snapped. He kissed her like he was claiming her, mouth hot and demanding, teeth grazing her bottom lip. His hands roamed her body with confident possession, removing her wedding dress with deliberate slowness that made her whimper. Charles, please. I want to savor you. His mouth traced down her neck across her collarbone. Every inch, Bridget. I want to worship every part of you. And he did. His lips mapped her skin, the curve of her shoulder, the swell of her breasts, the dip of her waist. Every kiss was reverent and hungry, tender and fierce. When his mouth found her most sensitive places, Bridget cried out, her hands fisting in his hair. The pleasure was overwhelming. Wave after wave building until she shattered, his name a prayer on her lips. But Charles wasn't done. He moved up her body, positioned himself at her entrance. Their eyes locked, blue meeting dark brown, love and desire and something deeper passing between them. I love you, he said, voice rough with emotion. God, Bridget, I love you so much. Show me. Her legs wrapped around his hips, pulling him closer. Love me, Charles, all of me. He entered her slowly, deeply, and they both gasped at the intensity. This wasn't just physical, it was soul-deep. A connection that transcended bodies and touched something eternal. They moved together, a rhythm they'd learned over months, perfected through practice and love. Slow at first, savoring, then building. Faster, harder, more desperate. "You feel incredible," Charles groaned against her neck. "Like you were made for me." "I was." Bridget's nails raked down his back. "Don't stop. Please don't ever stop." He shifted angles, hitting that perfect spot that made her see stars. One hand braced beside her head. The other gripped her hip, holding her steady as he drove deeper. "Look at me," he commanded, his voice strained. "I want to see you when you come apart." Bridget's eyes opened, locked with his. The intensity in his gaze, love and possession and complete devotion, pushed her over the edge. She shattered around him, his name torn from her throat in a cry that was part pleasure, part surrender, part worship. Charles followed seconds later, burying himself deep as he found his own release. "Bridget, God, Bridget." They collapsed together, hearts racing, bodies slick with sweat, completely undone. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time felt irrelevant. Finally, Charles shifted, pulling her against his chest. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her back. "Are you okay?" Bridget lifted her head, and he saw tears on her cheeks. "Hey." Concern flooded his features. "Did I hurt?" "No," she laughed through tears. "No, you didn't hurt me. I'm just overwhelmed by how much I feel. By how completely you've changed my life." He wiped her tears gently. "You changed mine too." So I spent years helping people find love, never believing I'd find my own. You saved me. I love you. I love you more. 4 years later, Bridget stood on the balcony of their Detroit home, 3-year-old Paris on her hip, watching Charles push baby Casper's stroller through the garden. Her daughter had his eyes, her son had her smile. "Mama, Daddy's riding." Paris pointed excitedly. Indeed, Charles had stopped to jot something in his ever-present notebook. He looked up, caught Bridget watching, and blew her a kiss. Her phone buzzed. Her assistant, board meeting in an hour. Bridget replied, "Reschedule. Family day." Charles came inside, Casper sleeping peacefully in his arms. "What are you thinking about?" "That I hired you to teach me about love," Bridget said, kissing him softly. "And instead, you taught me how to live. Best investment you ever made. Without question." She smiled, her brown skin glowing in the afternoon light. "Though I think I overpaid, probably." He grinned. "But I'm worth it." As Paris giggled and Casper stirred, and the afternoon sun painted their living room gold, Bridget finally understood that love wasn't about being perfect or being first. It was about being found, and she had been by a poet who saw her heart and loved it anyway, forever. Thank you so much for listening and for feeling. I hope today's story touched your heart and stayed with you a little longer. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a tale. Until next time, keep your hearts open and keep believing in love.